Holy shit, everybody. The body movement's back in 2022.
Yeah.
Hey, Al.
Hi.
We haven't recorded in about a month, so we're getting back into it. What's going on? How you doing?
Doing good.
Yep. Business
Hanging
is
out.
good. People are injured. You're helping them on their way.
Yeah, people will always be injured and will always be helping.
Yep.
And the goal is to, just keep them moving and keep them getting their best self going at all times.
Yeah, it's I'm always pinging you on the side these days with like, hey, check out this fitness account. I'm seeing this, and a couple of the good guys that I follow are like, man, if you're doing stuff right, you're just gonna get hurt actually at some point, just like
or if you're doing nothing, you're also going to have pain.
Right. So it's like, yeah, exactly. So there's just like, no, it's just like part of being human going around. So which is fun because now that we've been putting this out, like friends of ours, which is the genesis of this episode, or contacts in our Rolodex are like, hey man, I hurt this, I did this, what can I do? And I'm like, well, clearly you're not listening good enough, because you know that like you just can't say, oh yeah, like I rolled my ankle, so therefore this is what I should do for that. Like, sure, there's general practices, but everyone's like a case of one, as we've been learning with you. But there are overarching things that you can, I guess, test with every injury, or see if you can do that movement to kind of assess where you're at and maybe like what are the best movements. So one of these things that's come up today that we're talking about is plantar fasciitis, right? It's probably one of those common ones that we've been talking about: back pain, straining your ankle, plantar fasciitis, especially for somebody active and doing probably weekend warrior type sports activities, or again, anything. But that comes up probably a lot in your world, and people are just like, man, it just keeps coming back, or I just don't know what to do with it. And it's on your feet, and we're on our feet all day. So it's just like one of those things that we quote unquote live with sometimes. And we just wanted to tackle that one today. Just put out an episode for people, really explain what it is. Many of the things we're doing here are the common myths and misconceptions that are associated with that injury, and just like the quick fixes that people are trying that don't always work and make it recur, right? I think we're just trying to give that 30,000 foot view for everyone, and then maybe just a cool couple things that people can do along the way if they think they've been diagnosed with it, or they're questioning whether they should be doing a certain movement along the way once they know they have it.
For sure. Yeah. I think, this is born out of something that we've been wanting to doing, is like get down to myths, get down to diagnoses. I feel like that's a hot topic, right? So because even going into this, I just Googled plantar fasciitis to, although I kind of know what's out there, which is to the general look is just not great. It's okay information, but it's not. Most of what you read isn't going to push somebody forward or make them feel more comfortable. It's going to give them some ideas to treat. And that's like pretty overarching for a lot of common issues, is that you're going to Google it, number one, which I'm not opposed to. I think a lot of people are opposed to that, but I'm not opposed to it. That means you're taking time to try to cure it on your own. And I like that. Right. So you're going to Google it, but it's like, when you get into the nitty gritty of reading about this, I don't think good information is out, and that is true for many things. Yeah. So we were just talking to one of your friends that's dealing with some plantar fasciitis, and you're right, like active people, but it's really two people are more at risk: is overweight and obese people, and then people who are very active. So you can't say this is an issue of being overweight only. You can't say this is an issue of being active only. It's a load issue, which we'll get into.
Yeah, for sure.
But
and it's I love the myths and stuff, and we live in a world of you can self-research and do everything, and it's always concerning, like, well, if you just do the quick Google search, everyone knows you're just going to look at the first maybe 10, I'm being generous, 10 results. And it's really probably the top 3 to 5. And it's like, if that information is just like, okay, then it's like that, they're clicking on that and they go down the rabbit hole from there, and they're not getting the best information. So
Yeah.
That's got to be concerning on things like that with the human body, that where then people are taking things into their own hands. Oh, I'm just going to try this because I read it. But
well, here's the dirty truth
yeah,
that no healthcare professional wants to say
yeah,
is that things heal themselves. We
yeah,
heal. We're
yeah,
resilient.
yeah,
We
yeah,
heal.
yeah.
Really, like with plantar fasciitis,
Mm.
or which is not the best term, because fasciitis means that the fascia, which is a connective tissue, like a thick connective tissue. Sorry, but I use meat analogies. It's like the white tissue on chicken, that like connective tissue that you kind of got to get through. It's
Mm-hmm.
a thick, dense tissue on the bottom of your foot that supports your body. Right.
Right,
So that's
right.
what the plantar fascia is. And
Mm-hmm.
anytime you add itis to that, that means that it's inflamed. And often with plantar fasciitis, it's actually not inflammation that's there. Sometimes it is, but often it's not. But it's just that you're stressing that tissue, and that tissue is actually changing to try to adapt to what you're asking of it.
Got it.
So that's what the plantar fascia is, and plantar fasciitis is deemed to be. But a lot of times, so I think that plantar fascia is the bottom of your foot, and we'll throw a picture up, but it's the bottom of your foot. So when you look at treatments that are out there right now, if you do your top 10 search,
Yeah.
majority of them talk about things locally only. And they only talk about local things, many of which I want to talk about are good.
Yeah.
But it's beyond that. It's beyond
Yeah.
ICID. But to that point, things get better. So somebody might go on and read, and if you're listening to this and had plantar fasciitis, you go on and you're like, oh, yep, I know I'm going to rub my bottom of my foot on an ice bottle for every day. And that's fine. And the ice helps with pain and might give you some relief,
Mm-hmm.
but it's going to self-heal
Right.
regardless of what you do.
Right.
So
Yeah,
is
yeah.
it the ice and all this stretching that you've been doing for a year, or is it just the fact that our bodies are resilient and eventually get out of it?
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, we get a cut on our body, and you could put Neospore on it and you could cover it with a Band-Aid, or you could just let it go and keep it clean, and it will heal.
Right.
So it's no different with our joints, with our ligaments, with our bones. Like they do heal. And it's just a matter of, are you doing something to make that process more tolerable?
Yep.
Versus are you kind of correcting the body in a holistic way while treating it locally, focusing on it locally, but then a holistic way to maximize prevention going forward.
Correct.
Yeah.
So
I'm learning.
Yeah. So you're learning. So yeah. So, I mean, there's something to be said. There's a great book, and I'm actually staring right at it in my office here. It's called The Gift of Injury. And it just talks about when pain speaks, that you listen. It doesn't mean you stop everything, but you listen. And, another one of my favorite quotes is, I think it was my guy Liebenson that I always reference, was, you can't become well within the environment in which you became ill. So if you developed this, I do think it's a service to seek to understand why it happened. Yeah. So two major reasons that the plantar fascia will get aggravated are, one, that you did too much, too fast, too soon. This could be somebody who is a weekend warrior and suddenly was off for a month with COVID, or not with COVID, but with a lockdown, and started running every single day because they had the time. And they know they can run, and they know they feel good, but they went from running 2 days a week to 5 days a week. Yep. And they weren't quite ready for that load. Yep. So that's one option of that, or just over time, people are getting weaker, and when they're on their feet more, their body's not prepared. They are weak in certain areas. And eventually the load becomes too much and it stresses a tissue. Yeah. So it's either too much, too fast, too soon, which is also, you're not prepared for the load. Like, you're not ready for something that you're doing. Yeah.
Despite being fit, despite being in shape, despite doing something, it's just your body is in a state of homeostasis of, this is how much I'm used to handling. And you might not even get it on that first week of doing 5, but all of a sudden in week 2 or 3 or even 4 or even longer, sometimes it's like, man, I never got over that ramp up phase when you just went from 0 to 60 real fast. Right. And we talked about that a couple episodes ago, and like slow cooking the process and like the beginner's guide, but it wasn't for beginners. It was anyone restarting a program, starting a new movement pattern, starting a new activity despite being in shape because you're recruiting new muscle groups. And it's like, just kind of, there's a real method to that slow progressive load. Right. So, yeah,
I mean, progressive load, I think, is more the key there. Slow cooking for sure. And I know I use that term, but you follow what your body has, you challenge it, and then you push it forward from there. So your starting point is wherever you are, and you have to test that. We talked a lot about we haven't, but with some others, I talked just in general about like, where are you right now? So, if we stay to the tune of plantar fasciitis, for example, calf strength is a key determinant in that. Through our podcast, we are going to talk about calf strength 1,000 times.
Yep.
So calf strength, there's different, numbers per age and gender that are determined to be like the number of how many times you can go up and down on your toes.
Mm-hmm.
I think old school wise, think about like when we were at the gym, we would do calf raises, we would do seated calf raises, right? Yep. But now all of these isolated exercises have been demonized, and we've moved to this functional stuff, and then people can't do heel raises.
Right.
So, when you're looking at that point, when you go to sprint, when you go to jump, you're pushing off your toes, and you have to get to the end range of that movement.
Yep.
If you're not used to getting to that end range of movement, and then you load it heavy with a jump or up a stair, or you don't work out and you go to Manhattan and you're trying to catch a train, and suddenly you're moving quickly, you're not ready for that load and something breaks.
Yeah.
So that's like, so heel raises with regards to plantar fasciitis or plantar fasciosis is something that we really look at to see, are you at the ankle and with the push off, are you ready for that load? Do you have the minimal strength you need in order to do that? Running, and these are arbitrary numbers. They're kind of generally accepted. They're not necessarily research, but like 15 single leg heel raises in order to jog.
Right.
Kind of like a standard right now that doesn't have a lot of basis, but it's a starting point that needs to be researched.
Yep. Totally makes sense.
Start to look at people that can't do these things, and you'd be shocked.
Yeah. And now are these things that people should be able to find in a quick Google search, or does this really need to be like a chat with a professional? You know what I mean?
I hope one day this is stuff people can just find.
Yeah.
But right now, if you look up in a lot of the plantar fascia guides or whatever, do discuss calf strength a little bit. They more so discuss tightness of the calves. So like my calves always feel tight.
Yeah.
And we're learning more and more that tightness is actually weakness. Like rarely is tightness. Like really, is it truly short muscles? It can be, but even when they are truly short, there was just new research on the hamstrings, for example, which are often a muscle group that we say are tight, as are the calves, that actually loading those hamstrings versus a static stretching program helps to actually lengthen the muscle.
Right.
So instead of stretch and hold, you build strength and resiliency.
Right.
And that helps take away the tightness.
Yeah.
So, right now, most of the programs are like stretch your ankles, stretch your calves in theory, and they might mention calf strength, but what the hell does that mean? It doesn't go into what does that mean? It doesn't go into how to do that. So
got it.
If you are, intuitive and you read that, you might be like, well, what is calf strength? What does that mean? It doesn't mean just bouncing up and down a little bit on your ankles. It means going all the way up as far as you can get on your toes and then down.
Yeah.
And then sometimes doing that off a stair. So, most people do them and they go kind of like up and down just a little bit. And you're like, what are we doing here?
Right.
So it doesn't say how, and it doesn't give guidance on what the normal is to do calf.
Yep. So, all right. So like one of the common things, and again, I don't even think this is myth. I think people would understand that I went too fast too soon. I think people can actually grasp it, and probably people do know that. and then they're like, okay, so now that I'm here, now that I have this diagnosis, now that this is what I am trying to fix or, treat, it's like, all right, it's not just the foot area. It's also, I should be looking at my calves as probably step one or 1A, along with what's going on in the foot.
Yeah. I mean, so locally for plantar, like for the plantar or bottom of the foot pain, locally calf strength, ankle mobility, but I do believe strength and mobility go together. And, so the calf stretching or ankle mobility stuff isn't wrong, right? Like it is something that can be done.
Yep.
But toe mobility, right? You and I have talked about the big toe.
Yep.
I had an awesome conversation on a course I was at this weekend about, the great toe is what makes us human as opposed to apes.
Yep.
Right. So
yep.
Back in the day, and I'm just obsessed with this and reading about it now more and more, but it's back in the day,
yep.
When the ice age hit, we had to get up taller and we had to reach higher.
Yep.
So our feet came in and we could push off our toes more. Apes, their feet are out. They don't have toe extension.
Yep.
So, but if you start to look at how some people walk these days,
yep.
their feet are out, they're a little hunched over and they're
Right.
kind of moving back on the evolutionary scale, where, so the great toe mobility is something. And if you take your foot and if you're pushing off your great toe, the force is linear through the bottom of the foot. See what I mean? So if you push off, it's creating a force going back. If you turn your toes out, the force now is going to quote unquote drop your arch and put more stress on the bottom of the foot. So we're like, oh my God, you're overpronating or you're this and that. And that's the reason. But that's something that's happening. And it's not necessarily the demonized thing. But if you're not using your big toe and you're doing that and your calves are weak,
yep.
and we'll get into up the chain, then it becomes an issue.
Yep. All right. So summary kind of one here. I don't even think we really said there's a myth. We just said this is more of the assessment phase and where you need to be looking and what you're working on at home and or what your provider or therapist is working with you on. If they're not focused on your ankle mobility, your calf strength, which the two go hand in hand, and they're not really looking at that big toe and how it's being utilized in a barefoot situation, I'm sure, you're probably off to the wrong start on treating it in a holistic way.
Yeah. I mean, yes, I think within a couple sessions, you should be going up the chain pretty fast, yep. But locally there are things, right? And then it's like, so sometimes depends on the day, depends who you are, depends what you need. Sometimes we talk locally the first day because that's what resonates, but then putting it back into the system and diving deeper is really important. So another little thing off of that is, my biggest red flag from a provider for plantar fasciitis is that the first choice is orthotics.
Yeah.
Every fucking time.
Yeah.
No, stop. Yeah. I'm just going to, because what happened, so here you go, your bottom of your foot hurts. You clearly aren't utilizing your foot well. Something's up with your movement system. Your foot is your connection to the world. Do you ever put boots on a dog and watch them try to walk or watch a video of that?
Yes, of course.
Funny, but you took the entire world away from this dog because that is their input, right? So you have somebody that clearly has a foot issue and the first thing you say is, oh, just put these in, it'll make it feel better. Yeah. And it does. And it might.
Right. Yeah.
But it's not fixing the long-term solution.
Yeah.
So if there's a conversation about orthotics, I don't hate it. And I'm not against orthotics, especially if they make you feel better and make you continue to be able to move. But they shouldn't be forever and ever. They should be, for 98% of people, they shouldn't be forever and ever. Right. They could be short-term to help to manage to take off some stress as you fix your body.
Yeah.
But if you put that orthotic in and then you don't stimulate the foot at all, you don't wake it up, you don't put it on the ground, you don't roll it on a ball, you don't get pressure through those toes, and you just take your feet out of your life.
Yeah.
We're going upstream, major issues, of things.
Yep.
So to me, orthotic prescription is the first / only line of defense is a red flag.
Big red flag. And like you said, again, but there's still nuance in there, which you said, you're like, you don't mind it, but if it's short term, but what does that mean? Does that mean just like, hey, like I'm on my feet all day working and I don't have the, like I'm a nurse, let's say, and like, I just don't, and I'm running back and forth. Like I don't have time to be working on fixing the plantar fasciitis at the time. So I need an orthotic. It helps me move a little bit and it keeps it. But then I got to take that orthotic off when I go home. I got to do some work, right? Like,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's
so it's
it's
a crutch, right? If you break your leg, you need crutches for a certain period of time to deload the bone, but then you get rid of the crutches and you start to load the bone again.
Right.
The foot and the plantar fascia are no different. In order to change the load, you have to change the load. You have to change what you're doing. Right. So, if somebody is acutely in pain and they're running, I try very hard to not say don't run. Right. But for a short period of time, if we're going to, what I say, stop the bleed of this, right. You might need to stop and change some things. Let's connect the dots of getting your toe mobility to jump roping to single leg squatting to running. Like let's connect those dots. Let's show you your path. Yep. But you're jumping from I do nothing to back to running. Yep. And there's a staircase involved to get you back there.
Very cool. Yeah. No. And again, I've been posting almost weekly, me doing something barefoot, just cause again, playing hoops and probably just poor shoe design choice for hoops. Well, probably, I don't know. They feel like they smash. I can't spread my toes, now I don't have plantar fasciitis.
Is it the shoe? Now I'm going to, I always play like, other than like women who like shove their feet in shoes, right?
Yes.
We all do that. It's fine.
Right.
Other than that, shoe choice does make a difference. It does. But to me, again, I think, again, I do think like for a foot issue, plantar fascia, talking about shoes is relevant. It's needed. Yeah. But also
a little bit of a myth, right?
Yeah. We're learning more now. I mean, our movement preparation and our warm-ups what you and I did growing up aren't nearly what we know to do now.
Right.
Like a movement prep now should start at the foot, work its way up and do that. And you use your movement prep to prevent injuries and enhance performance. Right. But so if you're not getting that continuum, now that what we know, it's not being implemented yet by many, but is that, if we follow this, then those things stay. Even if you have an ankle injury, like you're used to doing this movement prep, you're used to using your foot, and then you just go back into that and you heal. Right. And then the environment in which you were injured, should be good, should be a good system. Yep.
That's important too. Cause I was, and again, you're leading this talk today. Like, I'm just the listener, but I was just like, the barefoot stuff I'm doing, I guess some of the myths are like, oh some of the myths are my shoe choice is bad and quote unquote bad. And it's really not that. And probably you just kind of debunked even what I was saying with my basketball choices of shoes. And we're not even talking plantar fasciitis, like, oh yeah, my shoes and my toes. And it's really, you can wear those shoes. You can wear those standard running shoes, those top of the line running shoes, but it's in conjunction with some of the barefoot work and other stuff you're doing that will allow you to wear those shoes without problems during the time that you're using them that are built for that activity, right? That's more.
Right. And I am totally in for shoes. I mean, I work with, an owner of a running shoe store often,
of course,
and we have conversations all the time. I'm like, and I don't disagree that shoes, changing out of shoes makes a difference. If you put different shoes on and they're more comfortable and you can stay active, do it.
Yep.
If you change, if you abruptly change shoes, people don't realize that is, runners definitely realize that, like serious runners, but people don't realize, like, sometimes if they change running shoes and they change their heel drop of that shoe by 1/4 of an inch, right, minimal, but or even less than that, but it changes. But they're putting 50 miles on their foot. That 1/4 of an inch over 50 miles is a sharp change in that force over time. Right. So, that's where breaking in shoes comes in. That's why these things are important. Sometimes we're breezing over these things these days because we just change and move on.
Yeah.
But, so shoes play a role. There is no question. But you can't say there's one best shoe for everybody.
Of course. Yeah.
But we can say that get your feet moving and keep them engaged in the world is a human trait.
And the whole reason I brought that up is I just thought it kind of tied into the orthotics a little bit, right? Because it's like you want your foot to be comfortable, you want it to feel that way during whatever activity you're doing. You want it to be comfortable and to be able to move so you can function throughout the day. But you got to realize that the barefoot work and the strengthening exercises got to happen in conjunction with that, so that you're not reliant on those shoes to make you feel good. Your body should feel great, and then the shoes just help you during specific activity.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And the same with the orthotics, right? And that it's just like you said, it's a crutch.
Yeah. The orthotics digs deeper into my soul than the shoes.
Yeah, because that's the whole thing, because it makes people feel great right away, and then they don't do the work. And the doctors,
and then they have medial knee problems, and then they have hip problems that should have been picked up along this process. Right. So that, that's part of the conversation, going up the chain, is that if you're having a foot issue, yes, you can start at the foot and you can look at all that stuff too, but it's like, how is it working within the body? If your hips are weak or tight, or they're not moving the way they should, then you're going to stress that more. Yep. If you can explode from a jump by using your butt muscles, which are huge, then you're going to try to push off harder through your foot.
Yep.
On a structure that's not made for all of that pressure on its own.
Yep.
So, the up the chain stuff becomes significant, very significant in this. That's something else I see, or that healthcare providers either don't have the time or aren't willing to go there. They're like, oh, it's a foot, we're going to rub it and treat it and move it. But like hamstring strength and glute strength, and teaching people how to store and release their energy. So I can't tell you how many people I have that have plantar fasciitis that I give them a jump rope and they can't do it.
Right.
And they're running. And so their basic knowledge of storing and releasing energy through their foot and ankle is just not there. Like they're either very knee dominant and jumping, or they don't have the whole body coordination to do it.
Right.
So, you look at that too. So there's different pieces, right? There's local mobility and strength. There's up the chain mobility and strength. Yeah. And then there's storage and release to teach your body how to manage the energy that's coming in and going out.
Yep. And that's where the work does. Okay. So, all right. So we got the localness, the local, assessment. You want to look at the foot, the toe, the strength and mobility of the ankle and the calves. You don't want to rely on orthotics as the only fix, and realize that it's just a false signal to your brain that you're feeling better during that time when you're not doing the work and really what that does is the doctor's like, okay, cool. You feel better. I don't have to see you again. And they don't do that. This is what your practice and Suarez is all about, right? It's like, of course, we're going to help you with that pain right there in your foot, but we're going to go all the way up to like your head and see like where in the chain the predominant, inefficiency is in your body that truly caused that to happen. And it might not even be that your hip or your knee, strength, mobility, inflexibility caused that at that time, but maybe it contributed. And by working on that, you'll minimize the chance that happens going forward, along with other stuff,
Right.
But
that's, that's the beauty of treating the whole body. So,
you got to treat the whole body.
I always say that is like your programming looks different for everybody, but shouldn't be, the systematic approach shouldn't be different for everybody. You're looking for their flora, their weakest link. Yep. And then you're trying to help them understand how to fix the system. When people get thrown in orthotics or change their shoes, which, I'm up for one shoe change. If you put new shoes on and your feet felt shitty in them, and you change your shoes and your feet feel better, of course,
right?
Leave it, move on.
Yep.
If you have plantar fasciitis and you've been through 5 different pairs of shoes,
Yep.
we're looking and breeding this look for an external fix versus internally, right? Because everybody's first option is, should I put inserts in and should I change my shoes?
Yep.
That is what everybody's first thought about plantar fasciitis is.
Yeah. I mean, I said it, already on this.
Yeah. This is why we didn't prep for this.
Right. Because you want to see, like, what do I hear? What do they say? What is the misconception?
Right? Right. So it's like, and so I think that is with feet in general, I think that's the commonality is it my shoes? And do I need orthotics?
Yeah.
That if I would bet if I did a survey with people that didn't watch this, if they, and then I put down like great toe mobility and calf strength, I would love to see the results of that. Maybe I'll do it, is just do a little poll of what's, what's the prime contributor or whatever, but
no doubt.
But most people look for that external thing first versus how am I loading? Am I strong enough? Can I store and release energy? That's just boring. It's better to get a new pair of Jordans.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And many people would say that regardless if we're talking injuries or not. So, all right, cool. So then what else did you want to hit here? Did we want to talk about specific exercises, or are we just focusing more on like, hey, like, make sure that you're not just relying on that people are focusing locally on strength and mobility and not just some sort of treatment, or are there a couple things that people can do, test that we wanted to hit or not?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and really this could be the summary behind this, point number one is shoes and orthotics, yellow light.
Yeah.
Or, if they help, great. If it's shoes and you change them, great. If first line is defense is orthotics and they help, which is fine. It's okay to wear them to be able to keep moving. But what else? Why did this happen? Your feet are supposed to be on the ground.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So that's number one, is just, antennas up about that. People will have plantar fasciitis once. It goes away. It's self-limiting and goes away within a year with nobody touching it. But now these people get put on orthotics for the rest of their life, and their feet have been taken literally out from underneath them.
Right.
Okay. So that's number one. Number two are, local factors that are being looked at. So, toe mobility, ankle mobility, calf strength are some crucial issues that can play a role with how the foot is hitting the ground. And those are areas in which we change internally. You change by moving yourself and starting to put those back into the system.
Yep.
Third is looking up the chain. Looking at hip strength, looking at trunk stability, looking at all the things, all the fancy things you're seeing can play a role with how we're moving, squatting abilities, jumping abilities. So looking up the chain, the ability to store and release energy in your body. So you're jumping, you're catching yourself, whatever it is you're doing, is a fourth bucket. And the last is just time and resiliency behind it. Is not looking for the quick fix with this. The research shows in 12 months, most people, it's gone. Regardless of what they've done treatment wise.
Yeah, that's a crazy one. That's a crazy one.
I'd love to say that I fix it for people, but I don't, but I reassure them you're going to be okay. You're gonna, this will be fine. And then they put in work to change the environment behind it. And that in turn helps them, their mind. And
again, really all of a sudden you're back to, you're treating the whole body, and you're maximizing the chance that it doesn't happen again, because they've changed some habits. Regardless if it was going to heal on its own, like now you've put them in a better position, and that's the work that's going to be done, regardless if it was going to heal or not.
But yes, agreed. It's listen to your body. If it's something that's going on, time does heal, but also listen. Like maybe there's something in your training plan. There's some hard shift that you made.
Yep.
Weight loss is a factor, it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So overall movement and being healthy and, at a good weight and all of that is a factor. But, to just solely blame that isn't fair because it's actually healthy and, very fit and people who aren't moving at all. That plays a role.
Very cool.
So those are the key points. I think more than anything, it's just trying to get people better knowledge than what's out there of how to manage these things and not feel lost. This is one people can feel really hopeless with, because it can hang. And people don't have conversations with people of stop the bleed. Modify your activity for a short period of time. My runner friends, maybe it's run 2 minutes and walk 2 minutes for a little period of time. How does that feel? Oh, better. Okay. So instead of running 5 miles, let's just break it up.
Right.
Let's sprinting, let's brisk walk and sprint as opposed to jog. And then let's talk about how we're going to get you back to jogging. So I think a big conversation that isn't done is stop the bleed. Sometimes is done via orthotics. So, which is okay. But you still have to get to the nitty gritty of why it's happening. You can't rely on those things for the rest of your life.
And then, so, the short term things that people do, icing the foot with a water bottle, rolling a ball on it. Again, you're not necessarily opposed to those things.
I'm not, ice is a very interesting conversation that I won't dive too deep into, but it's, ice is more of an analgesic. So it's a pain reliever. So if it hurts at rest, the ice will help it feel better. Icing also does slow down the inflammatory process. But the inflammatory process is there for a reason. Right. And the inflammatory process heals. Right. That's the purpose behind the inflammatory process. So, if you have an injury, any injury, and you're icing the shit out of it day after 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 day,
you're kind of delaying, actually, right?
Repeating. Yes. So actually, for our PT, for Suarez PT, our one of our posts coming up will be about this new idea of where we say protect and love, which is instead of rice, which is essentially like you protect the tissue, you rest the given tissue. And then you promote, that people feel good about themselves. You promote loading it again, and you actually reduce anti-inflammatories. So you reduce Advils and reduce ice, or avoid them at all costs if you can, because they actually delay healing. And we're learning more about this, but it's right. I mean, you heard Advils, everybody's front line still, and to break out of that from a musculoskeletal side is going to be very hard based on everything. But it does delay healing. So if, icing is fine short term, if it was something and it hurt after a run or after being on your feet, it's okay. But, just sitting in ice all the time can delay healing. Right.
So, and that's all I'm saying is the common things like using an orthotic, rolling a tennis ball or a lacrosse ball on your foot, rolling an ice bottle on your foot in that interim period, maybe within the first week, for short periods of time, just to relieve the pain in the moment is okay. But that's not what is just going to get it done. And what's going to get it done is working on calf strength through heel raises, pushing off on your toes, doing a little barefoot work, and then seeing what else might have contributed to the problem. And then figure
out your body.
And then working your way slowly back to it by especially playing basketball or running, where it's like if you played hoops for an hour, maybe you go out and you just shoot around for 15, 20 minutes. Like you just got to kind of just slow burn into the normal activity and making sure nothing flares back up while you're doing rehab type work.
Yes. And understand there's steps involved. We call it bridging the gap. Right. So it's like, that's the word I've been exposed to, or the phrase I've been exposed to is like doing heel. I can't tell you how many people I see that have done heel raises. They've done them. They've done heel raises. By the way, I've done these in PT. Great. Okay. And then I say, well, now do them without holding on. Well, now do them one foot. All right, now let me see you jump up and down 1 foot. Okay, now let me see you jump rope. Now let me see you jump rope 1 foot.
Right.
Now let me see you skip.
Yep.
You know, so these are the steps, the stairs up to running.
Yep.
And often we stop early and then just load. Yep. And we've missed this middle part where you're saying that slow cook process. Yes, it's a process. It's a constant progression.
Yep.
Not, oh, I can do 15 single leg heel raises, I'm going to go play basketball.
Right.
It's I want to get you to the point that you are doing all the things that you were doing playing basketball. So when you go play, none of those forces are new to you.
Right. Right.
That's what.
Yep. Totally.
So understand that I think there's shortcomings, and I think that's probably, you know, I mean, I'll continue to think of these if we stay on the horn, but shortcomings from a rehab world where this becomes chronic is that we never got people to the point that they needed to be.
Yep.
They were feeling better. They were feeling fine. They could do single leg heel raises, holding onto the bar. Maybe single leg jumping was looked at, but they didn't do it. They didn't push off. They didn't work on sprinting before they're on the basketball court.
Yep. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That's what people do is like, they just sit around till it feels better. And then they just go right back to it.
100%.
Yeah. And so you can't do that. That's where the built on developing yourself. That's where like, yeah, you want an expert, but it's like, hey man, you really got to dedicate that time and that patience and that mental fortitude to like bridge that gap, work through it step by step. So that then you'll actually be able to do that activity longer, sometimes probably even harder than when you did get hurt, you know? So yeah, that's
sustainability is the goal.
Right? Like, that's it's a very key mental hurdle, I think, because people are like, well, I was doing it and then I'm hurt. So I just want to get over the hurt and go right back to it. And it's like, well, you got hurt.
I just need to protect it. I just need to stop.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
right.
So then people get into another key term I've been exposed to is kind of like a boom and bust mentality.
Yeah.
Like I'm either down and out with an injury.
Yeah.
Or I'm going balls to the wall.
Right.
Down and out with an injury, or, you know, or I had plantar fasciitis. Oh yeah, I had plantar fasciitis. Oh shit. The next month I have such bad luck. I sprained my hamstring. Oh yeah. You know what? Shit. I sprained my hamstring. Then I rested for a little while and then
the dots, they don't connect the dots.
I blew my back out.
Right.
Why am I such a victim for all of these injuries?
Right.
Oh, right. Bad luck. It just happens. It's not. It's not bad luck. It's under-prepared. It's under, and you're not focused on the whole. Yeah.
And connecting the dots is literally, that's a good metaphor, because it's like, because that's all it is, all connected in your body. So that they don't make the connection that my hamstring pull could be related to the fasciitis I just had, and it's me overcompensating. Right. So,
and our bodies are resilient. They want out. So
right.
You might change something at your foot to get over the plantar fasciitis subconsciously, because
you don't even know it.
You don't want to look like we're wounded because we'll get eaten. That's our intrinsic thoughts that nobody really realizes, but we don't want to be eaten. We don't want to look like the weakest link. So our body will adapt and change and try to make us look normal. That will then lead to something else being
fun.
Pushed. And then that was, and then you're like, oh, my hamstring. And then, okay, so now you shorten your stride a little bit. And when you shorten your stride a little bit, then you hyperextend your knee. And so it just plays all together. I am somebody who, Aaron, I think I probably said this 1,000 times, will be like, well, my toe hurts and it's not my shoulder. I'm like, but it could be. Like, or I guess more so the opposite. Like my shoulder hurts and it's not my big toe. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I got to look.
Yeah, you got to investigate. You just don't know.
Is the link, right?
Yeah. And it could be at the start of the chain. It could be somewhere in the middle, right? Like you just
you see this all the time. Like we were just talking about the importance of the great toe for weightlifting. For overhead snatches, for jerks. Like in order to develop power and hang cleans, to pull the bar, you need to be able to get up on your toes to get underneath. And if you can't do that because of your toe, or you go to snatch and you can't push up to get it up, and then you land a little forward, well, now you got a shoulder injury.
Right.
So don't tell me it's not about the toe. It could be.
Yeah.
Let's look at it, clear it. Let's just not assume that.
It's crazy stuff, man. It blows my mind every time. I've almost gone the other way now through just having you in my life and doing the podcast. It's like, I hurt my shoulder. I'm like, God damn it. What's wrong with my hip? My shoulder's killing me. It's my hip.
Well, not always, right. You can have direct trauma to something, but a lot of times what hurts is the victim and not the culprit. Why did you put the force? Was it just too much weight? Maybe.
Right.
Okay. Was it because that you dipped when you were doing something because you're glued on the left speaker? I don't know. But, and again, I don't get that nitty gritty. It's just like, let's fix the system. But that does go through my head. Yeah. And then I try not, unless you're like a high level athlete, I try not to confuse the shit out of you. You're high level, really in tune people.
Yeah.
I will be like, your left glute is stronger than your right glute. Right. And then I'll get into the nitty gritty. But are most of us, like, let's make your squat better. Let's make this better.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. Okay. So good stuff. Hopefully that helped people a little bit. And it's more, we're constantly trying to reframe the way people think about these things globally. Just don't focus on where that local issue is. Don't go for those quick fixes that do make you feel better physically in the moment, and then think that that's how you get fully better long term. So
they're okay. They're okay. Feeling better is good.
Correct.
But understand why and then how to get back to what you want.
No doubt. And again, always, trust the process in anything, business and exercise and just learning a new skill. It's just like you relearn those steps, retrace those steps, go back to basics, work your way up to the most advanced. That maximizes your chance for success in anything. And it has nothing, it's no different when you're recovering from an injury. So
no doubt.
All right. Plantar fasciitis episode.
Yeah.
Good
all
stuff.
Sorts of directions.
Yeah. Good stuff. We'll be back next week. We're going to go off topic with a little intellectual guest, but all about, we're going to tie it into him. He's been on Lex Friedman's podcast, which is awesome. Like the #2 podcast in the world. And he's choosing to do ours. And he's all about, more of our healthcare kind of focus on this cash-based route you've gone. And he's a free market guy. And, just going to be talking about, providing solutions to broken institutions by maximizing the success of the individual and providing good competition, competition to the institutions. And, could that be a societal solve? It'll be like a good, fun kind of bigger conversation. But, so yeah, Yaron Brook, look him up and, we'll get this out.
And I was going to say, if as you're listening as well, if you want to drop a comment on other topics from a
definitely
injury side or issues that you're dealing with, just to, poke our brain a little bit, do it. Drop a comment with things. I mean, we're going to hit big ones as we go through this, but if there's something that one of our listeners has pressing, drop a comment and we'll do it.
And if you want to see more, pictures, if you want to see more slides, if you want to, if we can record some demos of things that kind of help assess this stuff, you guys do it with Suarez a lot, where you're just saying, hey, here's some good back mobility, overhead mobility stuff, low back health. So if you need more of that from us, because you're like, okay, I get what you're saying, I need to now apply it. We're growing with this thing and we're learning it. We're doing it through conversation, but I think we're going to keep evolving. So if you have a comment on I'd love to see how that actually works with the big toe and stuff like that. Let us know on that too.
Which we'll do anyway.
No doubt. Okay, everyone. Thanks for joining. Subscribe down below. Keep the family growing, and we'll see you on the next one.